On this edition of the Watchmen Brief, Hollywood, Snoop Dogg, culture, the Bible, Cracker Barrel, redlining. Who can help us make sense of all of these things? The Officer Tatum joins us on a special edition of the show to discuss this and a whole lot more. A very special edition of the Watchmen Brief is straight ahead. Stay tuned.
Ezekiel, you'll recognize me as the logo for Watchmen Action, but I bet you didn't know I could talk. While you're watching this, I should share it's a great idea for you to support Watchmen Action to equip the church to engage the culture. You can do that and get gold at the same time, because Goldback turned gold into money. Go to thegoldbackstore.com and grab your Goldbacks. Proceeds from the sale go to support our mission. That's thegoldbackstore.com.
And welcome back to another edition of the Watchmen Brief. My name is R.C. Williams. Welcome to the stage now, the one, the only, the Officer Tatum. Brother, welcome to the Watchmen Brief.
Oh, man, thank you for having me on.
You know, we caught up at Turning Point Student Action Summit in Tampa, and a lot going on, slow news days, right? I was like, we got to have Officer Tatum on to get his hot take on things that are going on. And as we do this today, there are a number of things going on, and you've been active on Twitter. So I want to start with your commentary on AiPac, Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I'm going to do this here because I want you to comment on that briefly because you've been active. But then I'd like for you to speak to, in context, the other lobbying that's going on with groups that are trying to influence the U.S. government. So let's start with the AiPac thing and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and then we'll jump into this.
Perfect.
So we saw the interview with Megyn Kelly. You obviously had your take on the interview with Megyn Kelly. Brandon, what's going on here, and how does this go into the larger context of what's going on with lobbying of U.S. government?
Well, first, this is multifaceted, right? You know, I look at Megyn Kelly's interview, and I look at whether Marjorie Taylor Greene was genuine in her concern and her questions about Israel. And this is where the crux happen. There's nothing wrong with having a conversation about Israel. It's nothing wrong with being critical of things that you think you see inside of what Israel is doing in America, whatever. But you have to be, in my opinion, especially if you're a congressperson, you have to be very clear about what you mean and what you don't mean, what are facts and what are not facts, what is conjecture and what is based in reality. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, literally almost every point she made was not substantive. It wasn't factual. It seemed like she read a sheet of talking points of conspiracy theories against Jews and kind of summarized it and went on Megyn Kelly's show to explain it. It doesn't seem that the fact that she was genuine at all. I mean, we can go down the points. I mean, when she tried to act like AiPac should be registered with FARA, it's a complete farce. I understand that you may not like the law, but you can't act as if something nefarious is going on if it's abiding by the law. FARA is for foreign entities who have foreign personnel, or they directly pay money to for people to lobby and in the interest directed by the government. So if you don't have those elements, I don't care what you feel about it. If you don't have those elements, you should not be registered as FARA. Now, when it comes to AiPac, and then just doing a little research, people can do this on their own, is that AiPac are American citizens who have an interest to lobby on what they want to lobby for. No different than the NRA and some of these other lobby groups that are in America, is that American citizens can advocate and lobby for whatever they find to be interested in or they think is important. And in Congress, you don't have to participate. You don't have to take money from AiPac. Clearly, Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't take it. You don't have to go on a trip to Israel because clearly Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't, and many other Congress members don't go. But that does not mean because others go that it's nefarious to any point. And then the other point about lobbying, It's funny and interesting that it seems that AiPac is the priority of what people are explaining when it comes to lobbying and spending. When I did the research last election cycle, AiPac spent about $95 million in elections. Now, AiPac itself can only spend $3 million. It had other PACs that they were associated with collectively do $95 million. But when you look at Win Red, when you look at Act Blue, $1.1 billion in the last election. When you look at other lobbying groups that are FARA registered, They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars in our elections. You talk about China, Japan, Saudi Arabia. They're spending hundreds of millions, far exceeding the influence of what they consider AiPac to have. And I'll point this out. The interesting thing is that if AiPac was registered as FARA, it still don't negate the fact that they could lobby. So in actuality, I don't think that Marjorie Taylor Greene really has a real problem with lobbying. She has a problem with it being lobbying for Israel or the relationship between America and Israel. That's really what she should say. She really don't care about lobbying, because whether AiPac is lobbying as an American-based nonprofit organization or they're lobbying as FARA, they're still going to be able to lobby Congress the exact same way.
Brandon, in your opinion, this seems to be happening, not just for Marjorie Taylor Greene, but with others. Your hot take on why this is happening in the first place?
It's a multitude of things. You know, some of it is spiritual. Some of it is sheer ignorance. Some of it is people who are believing in conspiracy theories. And some of it is, I would say, anti-Semitism, which means that some people just hate Jews and they find any reason to hate Jews and make them look bad, and whatever they can do, whatever dot they can connect. I said on my video the other day that a Jewish person can own a candy store, and somehow they'll connect the dot that Jews are responsible for Red 40 and destroying the American people. And so I think the conflict that we see happening is multifaceted, and it's unfortunate because propaganda, and we see this in all other aspects, especially in America, where you have the propaganda of Black Lives Matter, you have the propaganda of the mask mandate from COVID-19, you have the propaganda that Donald Trump is a Nazi. Like the propaganda influences so many more people, and it's unfortunate. And I think this is happening against Israel. A lot of this is not fact-based, research-based, impartial concepts that people are spewing to the people. This is literally biased propaganda / conspiracy theories.
So, Brandon, on that and on research, I want to do this. Let me pull up your piece on redlining. So this is an important topic, and I think it's one that liberals in particular over the years have hijacked. Obviously, you run the Uncle Tom movies, and we've talked about this on the show and both what we do with Sherlock extensively, how all of these hustles go on and these narratives are made up. Can you talk to people about redlining and the work that you did here to provide clarity on what it is, what it isn't, and what's actually happening?
Right. And I did research, and I referenced my research in this particular op-ed, so people know I'm not just coming at this, talking out the side of my neck, for lack of a better term. So when you look at redlining, and this is the mythical part of redlining that bothers me the most. If a person wants to say Black people were disproportionately affected by redlining, that is an absolute fact. But when you start to add intent to disproportionality, that's when you are wrong. And I also referenced Thomas Sowell's book, Discrimination and Disparities, in this because it articulates very clearly that just because you see disparities doesn't necessarily mean there's discrimination happening. And then when you go and look at the statistical data points of how redlining was established, over 90% of all the loans that were given out before they even drew whether or not there's a red line or not, meaning that there are certain color codes for different risk factors of lending in a particular area. So that means that if it's green, that means it's good for lending. If it's red, that means it's bad for lending and it's not good prospects. And that does not have to do anything with race. It's just unfortunate that the poor communities happen to be majority Black, or I'll say majority Black, happen to be that majority of Black people live in those communities. However, why don't the people who talk about redlining explain that most of the people who lived in the red line districts were white people? So they like to conflate that majority of Black people lived there, meaning the majority of the Black population lived in the red zones, but the majority of the red zone was white people. So it's like an overwhelming majority. So why don't we talk about how redlining residually affected white people who were disproportionately, in comparison to other whites, disproportionately not given the loans that other white people in other areas were given? The fact that they don't bring that up at all creates a huge skepticism in my mind. And research, and I hope people read this because it's a little more thorough. I don't have time to explain it all right here, but research have shown that it's not a matter of racial intentional discrimination. It's an unfortunate fact that Black communities were desolated and Black people did not have a circulation of wealth. Black people did not have good credit scores, did not have good, I would say, lending practices. That's why many of them ended up in these areas where they could not lend to them. And I'll throw this out here because I opened up my op-ed with this point, is that it's funny how you darn if you do and you darn if you don't. When you don't lend to African Americans, or you don't lend to people who are high risk, who happen to be disproportionately African Americans, they call it redlining and discrimination. But then when you do lend to Black people that are unqualified, or any people that are unqualified and disproportionately there happen to be Black people, they call it predatory lending. So which one is it? If you're not qualified, you're not qualified. And therefore, it's a struggle to give you a loan. It's a business at the end of the day. The bank don't want to default. But then when they put pressure on them and they give loans to people who are not qualified and they default on their loans and go into debt and all this other stuff, then they say they're being predatory. It's a darn if you do scenario. And that's the reason why I wrote that op-ed, because there's just too much misinformation. It's like half truths that they put out that have truth to it, and they build a narrative around it instead of giving people the full spectrum so they can understand clearly it may have affected African Americans disproportionately. Let's work on restoring that, but don't lie and act like it was only African Americans and it was targeted to African Americans.
You know, Brandon, it's interesting. We've done work on the idea of poverty pimping, which used to be a Wikipedia entry, but has been scrubbed. I was going to do a piece on Al Sharpton, and all of a sudden it was gone. But it is interesting how many of these groups, whether it's the National Action Network or the Rainbow Coalition, they never seem to solve the problem, right? There's always a need, but the actual problem or the facts in the case of your op-ed are never addressed. And I think that's an important point for people to take away from the work that you've done, is you've got to look at this stuff in context in order to really understand. And the truth is the truth, right? We call balls and strikes. That's the way that it is. People, they need to understand that. And that's why I think when I saw that you did the piece and I read the piece, I thought it was really important that we talk about it and get your take. So thank you for doing that. Hey guys, really excited about what Sherlock Market Research has put together. We've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes. I wanted to share one of those great tools with you. Up on your screen, you see new digital proof. So here's the deal with the gobackstore.com. What we discovered is that people started buying from us, and we asked them, hey, great order. Thank you so much. Don't know who you are. How'd you find us? And what they said was ChatGPT. After thousands of dollars in additional revenue, we dug in to figure out what was going on, why this was happening, and what that lightning in a bottle was. And that was the birth of New Digital Proof. So here's what we've done. We've built a GPT called Sherlock New Digital Proof just for you. And now you can get found when customers ask for help. So let's take a look at this. If they're on AI, here's the deal. 85% of businesses are invisible to customers when they ask AI, who is the best service near me? We don't want you to lose anymore. So here's how this works. In life today, it's less about Google and more about what is my experience like. People will go to ChatGPT or Claude or something like that, Perplexity. They're looking for answers. So in 3 simple steps, you can ask our GPT, hey, tell me what's going on with this in my market. Who are my competitors? We actually give you a report right there on the screen that tells you what's going on, where you place, and things that you need to do. All of that is 100% free for you. Now, if you want to upgrade and get all the tools that you need to continue to build to win, you can do that too. But for now, what I want you to do is go to newdigitalproof.com. It's right here on the screen, newdigitalproof.com. Go ahead and try out Sherlock's New Digital Proof ChatGPT for yourself for free. Get some answers, get a strategy together, and help your business to win. It's newdigitalproof.com. That's newdigitalproof.com. Something less serious, but just, I guess we would put in the odd news category. Let me do this real quick because of all the things that I did not expect to see this week, this was certainly one of them. So, and there's a biblical position to this too, Brandon. So Snoop Dogg, who managed to come up with the Death Row Gospel Choir, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around, right? He's talking about Hollywood. He goes to the movies, he takes his grandkids, and he just blows up on the whole LGBTQ thing. So I pulled this up on the screen, Brandon. I want to get your take because you had thoughts on this, but I wanted to do it this way because I wanted to point out the disparity in headlines of what happened versus what's being conflated and how the narrative is being positioned. So I want to get your take on what's going on. Then I want to get your take on the headlines that you see on the screen. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I actually wrote an opinion piece about this too, because it was very interesting, because Snoop Dogg, who has a history of just doing crazy stuff, right? I mean, he literally spent his life smoking weed and disparaging women. And I don't know if he does it as an older man now, but his music, I used to listen to Snoop, right? I did the Dog Pound and Death Row Records, and Snoop was my guy. Murder was the case that they gave me. That was his hit piece. And so having him now say that, wow, I was taken aback. I didn't even have a response to my grandson when I saw, a movie that displayed two women having a baby, assuming that they had a baby together, right? And his grandson asking them, well, how are they gonna have babies, these two women? Women can't have babies with women. And to see him say he didn't even have words to say. He has a lot of other words to say about a lot of other destructive stuff to the society, in my personal opinion, in part. Not everything that Snoop do is bad, but he does have his side. But for him to say that, it was very shocking to me, because I'm like, well, wait a minute. Two things. I think it exposes the fact of how crazy this propaganda is through film on our children, that this guy would say something about it. But it also alluded to a fact that he didn't go far enough to me, because he said in the podcast interview that he didn't know what to say. And the podcaster had asked him, a female podcaster said, well, what did you say to him? He's like, I just said, be quiet and eat the popcorn. I don't have time to explain all this to you. And it was like, he tried to go, he said he was trying to go to sleep during the movie and just let his grandson watch the movie, but he was woken up by him asking all these questions. I think, and I wrote in my piece, that he should have said something very clear, that women can't have kids with other women. It's just, it doesn't work like that. But I do understand why he couldn't do that in the middle of a movie. It's quiet in there. People eating popcorn, trying to be entertained. He didn't have time to give a lecture to his grandson, who probably can't understand this fully in the first place. So I thought it was very interesting. It's very sad at the state of affairs that our country is in, that they're pushing propaganda that's so confusing. Even adults don't even know what to say to kids about it.
Brandon, you had a take earlier, not directly related to this, but I think it's important. Our thought is that there are biblical implications here. When we cede ground culturally as believers, this is what happens. And, you made the comment about the fact that the church isn't the walls, basically. We are the church. What does this mean biblically when someone like this, Snoop, who has had a mixed history, like you, I listened to Snoop and the Dog Pound and Death Row and the whole thing. What does this mean now biblically for people when someone like this comes out and says, whoa, that's too much for me? Where are we at right now? What can we do culturally?
Well, I think that, Christians have to understand we are a part of the culture, and we should be gearing the culture in the way in which it goes. And the reason that I wrote a tweet about the fact that we are not the church, meaning the building, we don't go to the church, we are the church. That means that you don't have to only have influence when you're in the four walls of a church facility on Sunday morning. It's that every day that we're out in the world, we should be living like Christ Jesus. That means that people should see Jesus every single day in us through our actions, not just our words. And so when you see culture getting so bad that a non-Christian man is willing to stand up and say something or even cause, controversy, then how much more are Christian people, obligated to say something, to use influence? There's so many Christian people that are in the movie industry, but they're too afraid to push back on it. That's how these movies get to production, and that's how they get in front of the world, because Christians are working on these movies, but they don't want to ruffle the feathers. They don't want to lose money. But the thing that they don't realize is that if you pursue truth, there's other people that will pursue it with you. But some people are waiting on that first person to take this first punch. And that's how I've been with Israel and all these other things that I've been doing. And I believe this is why I'm so popular, because I take an unpopular opinion, even, because it's true. And then other people come around. You wouldn't even imagine how many messages I've gotten from celebrities that are like, thank you for saying this. Thank you for saying this. And I don't do it because I need somebody to say anything to me. I don't care. I do what I think is right. But the truth is, some people are just waiting for somebody to be bold enough to say, I don't care that everybody's going this way. I'm going to go this way because I have a conviction. And I believe God will protect me if I'm doing what's right. That's standing up for Israel. That's standing up against the LGBTQ agenda. You know, do I care that people are living a homosexual lifestyle? That has absolutely nothing to do with me. If you ask me what I think is against God, and I'll let me pray for you if you want my input on it. I'll pray for you. I'll give you some scriptures. Hopefully we can guide you into living the purpose that God has for you. But I'm not going to go out and make nobody do nothing. But also I'm not a coward and feeling like I'm not going to say anything, even if I'm pressed about my own opinions on the topic. And I will say this. I'm blessed to be able to own my own platform. I don't work for anybody, so I can do whatever I want to do. Nobody's going to fire me unless I want to fire myself. I do understand that other people are in different positions. So I'm not telling every single person to go on their job today and tell their boss that they're going to hell because they're a sinner. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is be strategic. Sometimes your actions, and I would say most of the time, your actions speak way louder than your words. You don't have to go and tell your boss that you are a harlot or you're going to hell because you're shacking and living with a man you're not married to. You got kids out of wedlock. You don't need to even say none of that. All you need to do is live according to how Christ lived, and the love that people receive from you, make them want to receive whatever you have to say to them in love. If you have a person that you hate, that you think hates you, you're not going to be able to receive anything from that person. But if you have a person who you genuinely respect and you believe actually care about you genuinely, when you critique that person, it's easier to receive. And I'm not saying capitulate to everything that a non-Christian or a person who's not living right feels, but we have to start living like Christ more than we do. And that is that Christ said things, but then people also watched the way he moved, watched what he said and didn't say. They watched how he healed. They watched how he loved, and he had compassion when they didn't think compassion was applicable in the situation. And what do people do? They go, what is it about this man? Why is this man so different? Why does he say things like this? Why does he speak like this? Isn't it this that our ancestors would do this and this and that? But this man does something different. And that's how we influence, not beating our chest on Sunday morning, speaking in tongues, trying to be holier than thou. We should be out in the world expressing Christ.
All right, guys, we'll get back to this episode in just a second, but I had to share with you more great tools from Sherlock Market Research. Let me pop this up on the screen for you. So Sherlock Market Intelligence, Sherlock Audience Intelligence. You know, our entire business is research and understanding how humans act human. Well, we've taken that, talked about the lightning in the bottle a little while ago. We've taken that now and created Sherlock Audience Intelligence. Bang, take a look at your screen. What if you could talk to everyone ready to buy from you right now? That's what we've done. So in a couple of steps, you could sit down with every single person who's ready to buy, digitally, of course, whatever you have to sell. We can help you to craft messages, reach that audience everywhere that they are. And you can see the results. Average sales up 150%. 95% of the time, we can find everyone that's in market for what you want, no matter where they are in the United States. Our database is almost 300 million people, and we're watching billions and billions of signals, activity online each and every week to figure out when someone is not just looking for something, but they're actually actively looking to buy that thing. So we find them for you, we start talking, we keep following them, and that results in more sales for you. You can see the pricing is super easy to get started. If you're a small to mid-sized business, this is your sweet spot, and we guide you each and every step of the way. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to yourexactcustomer.com. That's yourexactcustomer.com. Make sure to get signed up for a demo of Sherlock Audience Intelligence today. Your business is set to win with help from Sherlock Market Research and Sherlock Audience Intelligence. That's yourexactcustomer.com. Go right now. Highways and hedges, Brandon. Okay, so one more before you go. I couldn't let you go without us at least getting your hot take on this. I feel like what's happening, and there's some memes out there that like a McDonald's has gone from us when we were kids. Now it's this angry middle-aged or 30-something who has no future, right? What's your take on what Cracker Barrel did here and this insanity?
It's a generation of woke mind rot people that are trying to eliminate the foundation. It's like saying that a father, this is the example that I give, and this comes to my mind. A father has spent 45, 50 years building a family-owned business. And the kid who wasn't a part of the groundwork, who wasn't a part of the had skin in the game, was kid playing and having a good time while daddy was working hard and building a brand and a reputation. And that kid takes over the company after, unfortunately, dad passes away and upholds zero connection to the foundation, zero connection to what it meant to start the business and what it means to maintain and the clientele and customer base that this business has. This person goes off to the university, out of touch with reality, come back and do whatever they want to do to the company because they didn't hear some woke person tell them this is what it is. This is what the CEO and the marketing people are doing with Cracker Barrel. There is absolutely no reason whatsoever that Cracker Barrel needs to change their signage. If they wanted to revamp the inside, which I think is a bad idea, but if they wanted to elevate the inside a little bit, why do you have to change the logo? Why do you have to get rid of everything that's in the name of Cracker Barrel? The foundational principle. They literally have rocking chairs right outside of Cracker Barrel. How do you take the rocking chair off of the sign? Like, and then you listen to her say these things and they go, we heard back from so-and-so and so-and-so. It's like, what makes Cracker Barrel is the traditional approach. I feel like I'm going back to a time where going to my grandma's house, because my grandma her house had wooden floors and it was just like this, where you feel like I'm going back in time. Now, that generation of grandma and them are passing away, but the new generation should understand the value of what history means, what the Cracker Barrel really means, what the, going and getting a good meal cooked to you, like when we lived in the country, when people were a little less ignorant as they are today. So I just wish that young people understand. And let me say this. What is it? Waffle House didn't do this.
Right.
Waffle House ain't changed nothing. I don't think they even changed the seats in there for 100 years. It's the same seat that my great grandfather sat in a Waffle House with the same menu, the same ingredients, and the same it's like the same uniform. They haven't changed nothing. Why? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. IHOP haven't changed anything. Not that I know of. I don't think IHOP has changed anything. No. There's a lot of organizations. Now, they may not be as old as Cracker Barrel, but a lot of these organizations, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. McDonald's, I don't think, haven't changed anything for decades. There's a lot of these companies that have tradition that should never change. Even like the candies that we used to eat. Now-laters. When I was a kid, I was running through them now-laters. In some of these stores, they still have now-laters that have never changed.
Right.
So anyway, that's my take on it.
So, Brandon, before we let you go, what's coming up for you? What's going on? Let everybody know what's coming up for you, what you're working on, and then how they can find you.
Well, it's great. That's great. AmpFest is coming up every year. Turning Point USA puts on AmpFest. There's also at World Outreach Church, I think on the 19th, but people can go to my website. You can see when all of my events are. But there's a culture event that's put on by Pastor Alan Jackson at the World Outreach Church. Incredible panel, incredible people that are going to be speaking there. And that's in September, I believe, like September the 19th, around there. So those are the two events that I'm going to be doing. People can follow me on social media at The Officer Tatum. Follow me on Substack. You can go to The Officer Tatum. My Substack is under the Tatum Report. And so go follow me on all the platforms. If you enjoy what I say, and people, if you like how I keep it raw and uncut, then, go follow me on social media. I would appreciate it.
And Officer Tatum's Substack will be recommended on both Sherlock Exposes and We Are the Watchmen Weekly. The Officer Tatum, thank you so much, my friend, for joining us on the Watchmen Brief.
Well, God bless you, brother. Thank you for having me, and I'd love to come back anytime.
Love it. Thank you.